Good evening, everyone. This is the Town Council meeting for June 30th, 2026. Please turn off or silence your cell phones during the public meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required under Chapter 231 PL 1975, specifying the time, date, location, login, or dial-in information, and to the extent known, the agenda by posting a copy of the notice on the municipal building, the municipal court, and the two municipal library bulletin boards and municipal website, providing a copy to the official newspapers of the town, and by filing a copy of the office, the township clerk in accordance with the certification by the clerk, which will be entered in the minutes. There will be public comment periods for remote and in-person, but not remote this evening. In-person attendees separately. Each member of the public shall only have one opportunity to speak during each public portion. As the technology does not allow us to know if there are multiple callers on an individual phone line or a logged-in user account, we ask that if you wish to speak, that you log in or dial in separately so that we can recognize you as a separate individual. Should you have any further comments or questions, the Town Council is always available by email and phone, and you can always call the mayor's office during normal operating hours. Peter, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cahill.
Here.
Councilmember Carmichael.
Here.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Here.
Councilmember Leibowitz.
Here.
Councilmember Rashid.
Here.
Councilmember Urin.
Here.
Council President Lombardi.
And would everyone please join the flag salute? Number 5, do we have any comments from the administration or council regarding the adjournment of any matters on this agenda?
Carmichael does. I'd like to speak. Can I, you said me, right? You said the council, right?
Sure.
Yes. Good evening, everyone, council and the mayor and visitors in the audience. I wanted to speak on number 9. Number 9, the ordinance, first reading, amending and supplementing Chapter 21, zoning to establish and enact affordable housing 7AH-7 zone, a resolution adopting ordinance. I would like to move that this item be postponed. First thing is there was a meeting that's supposed to be held with the residents who opposed this ordinance, and it was, and I think my understanding is it was rescheduled, but they are asking that they have the opportunity to sit with the mayor and discuss their concerns more openly and discuss options. When they were here initially, they brought up issues of property values, neighborhood character, infrastructure and traffic. Traffic was a big concern. Safety to the children living in the area, school overcrowding, and those were their main issues, and especially the safety of their children. And so I would like to ask that this be postponed until they can have a meeting with the mayor to talk speak on their concerns and additional options. And I also see here it says this is affordable housing, totally affordable multifamily housing and/or age restricted, and that the option of the age restriction be discussed with them more as well. So that is my motion is to postpone this until after the residents in this area are having the opportunity to meet with the mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Councilwoman Carmichael. I'm going to have the attorney speak to this.
So, unfortunately, this ordinance is kind of time-bound pursuant to the court litigation that has been proceeding. So we have to get it done within a certain period. Now, I'll tell the council this is first reading, so that hopefully that meeting with the residents will happen before second reading, and if there's an amendment need to be done, we could maybe see if the court will give us an extension. But right now, we are in a very, very tight timeline, so I do request they'll approve this on first reading. I'll discuss it in when the item comes up.
Thank you for that clarification. Anyone else with comments? Seeing none, we're going to move to number 6, which will be open to the public for comments regarding items number 10, the consent agenda items only. So we are not going.
I have a question for the consent agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted more context, and if I can get some more clarity on item number 10, C and G.
Can answer the, the mayor has answered to C, which is part of our fourth round affordable housing. And with respect to G, that has to do with our community development building, also known as the Italian American Club, that is further down down Sydney Road. That's because the development of that has extended beyond the originally planned, so we need to have additional administrative support from our architectural firm, Netta Architects. So this encompasses not only going forward until December, but the previous services they provided that they were not compensated for because it needed to go in front of the governing body.
All right, thank you.
Okay, now we are going to do a little test run because we may have the opportunity to have the technical difficulty worked on.
This is mic testing. in
Where we
control
open
room.
remotely.
Mic test, mic test.
We have not solved that problem, so we are not going to be opening to remote attendees this evening. At this point, for each public comment portion in the in-person attendees, if you wish to speak at this time, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and know that you have 3 minutes in which to make your comments. You may take a seat after the completion of your comments or questions, and the council or administration will respond if necessary. Please note that this is open to the public for the consent agenda items only at this time. We are now open to the public for the consent agenda items.
Okay. I'm here for item number 9, if that's not up yet.
No.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion for the consent agenda items. Number 7 is an ordinance second reading. It's the acquisition of 30 Murray Avenue, Block 1906, Lot 33.01. It will be open to the public. It's a resolution adopting ordinance. Ms. Cedar, can you please read this ordinance?
Be it resolved by the Township Council of Piscataway Township, New Jersey, that an ordinance entitled Ordinance Authorizing the Acquisition of Certain Property, identified as Block 1906, Lot 33.01, 30 Murray Avenue, in the Township of Piscataway, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, for public purpose pursuant to NJSA 48:12-1 et sec, was introduced on the 11th day of June 2026 and had passed the first reading and was published on the Township website on the 12th day of June 2026. Now therefore be it resolved that the aforesaid ordinance, having had a second reading on June 30th, 2026, be adopted, passed, and after passage be published together with a notice of the date of passage or approval on the Township website. Be it further resolved that this ordinance shall be assigned number 2026-12.
Peter? We'll now open to the public because this is a second reading, so we have to open to the public. Anyone wishing to, in person, to come up for the public portion of this, please. We are now open to the public for anyone in person regarding the ordinance number 7.
Can we get clarification on what it is?
It's an acquisition of a piece of property on 30 Murray Avenue.
If I may, Council President, this is property that it's adjacent to Westergaard
Library.
that's now vacant, and it's behooves us since it's being sold. The owner is willing to sell it to the town, and we don't know what the needs are going to be 25, 30 years down the road. So if there needs to be an expansion of the library or the building and/or parking.
Thank you. Seeing no one's coming up for the public portion, we're going to close the public portion of that second reading for number 7. Do I have an offer?
Offer, Councilwoman Cahill.
Do I have a second?
Second, Espinosa.
Ms. Cedar, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cahill?
Yes.
Councilmember Carmichael?
Yes.
Councilmember Espinosa?
Yes.
Councilmember Leibowitz?
Yes.
Councilmember Rashid?
Yes.
Councilmember Urban?
Yes.
Council President Lombardi?
Yes, and number 7 passes. Number 8 is an ordinance first reading authorizing the expansion of utility agreement with the Piscataway Township Board of Education, 450 Rivercrest Drive. It's a resolution adopting ordinance. Ms. Cedar, can you please read this ordinance?
Be it resolved by the Township Council of Piscataway Township, New Jersey, that an ordinance entitled Ordinance Authorizing the Execution of an Agreement to Expand a Permanent Access and Utility Easement affecting Block 10402, Lot 1.01, Kanakamak School, 5205 Witherspoon Street, and property known as Block 7305, Lot 19.02, 450 Rivercrest Drive, in the Township of Piscataway, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, be and is hereby adopted on the first reading, that it be published on the Township website, and that a second reading and public hearing be held at 7 p.m. prevailing time at the Piscataway Municipal Building, 455 Hose Lane, Piscataway, New Jersey, on the 21st day of July 2026. Be it further resolved that a copy of this ordinance shall be posted in at least 2 public places within the Township prior to the day of the second reading and final passage, and a copy of this ordinance shall be made available at the office of the Township Clerk for any interested member of the public.
Thank
If I
you.
may, Council President, this is at the recommendation of the Fire Marshal. It's going to allow for better fire suppression pressure for both the school district and that section of town. Right now, it's just the water line just dead ends right there. So this is going to be like a circular loop out there. So thus, that's why they need to widen the easement out there for the water utility company.
Thank you for that clarification, Mayor. Do I have an offer?
Councilman Aaron, offer.
A second?
Second, Espinosa.
Ms. Cedar, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cahill?
Yes.
Councilmember Carmichael?
Yes.
Councilmember Espinosa?
Yes.
Councilmember Leibowitz?
Yes.
Councilmember Rashid?
Yes.
Councilmember Urban?
Yes.
Council President Lombardi?
Yes, and number 8 passes first reading. Number 9 is an ordinance first reading, amending and supplementing Chapter 21, zoning to establish and enact affordable housing, 7AH-7 zone, resolution adopting ordinance. Ms. Cedar, can you please read this ordinance?
Be it resolved by the Township Council of Piscataway Township, New Jersey, that an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance to Amend and Supplement Chapter 21 Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Piscataway, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, to establish and enact the Affordable Housing 7AH-7 zone to address compliance with the Township's affordable housing obligations, be and is hereby adopted on the first reading, that it be published on the Township website, and that a second reading and public hearing be held at 7 p.m. prevailing time at the Piscataway Municipal Building, 455 Hose Lane, Piscataway, New Jersey, on the 21st day of July 2026. Be it further resolved that a copy of this ordinance shall be posted in at least 2 public places within the Township prior to the day of the second reading and final passage, and a copy of this ordinance shall be made available at the office of the Township Clerk for any interested member of the public.
Thank you, Ms. Cedar. And please note, this is only the first reading of this ordinance. And I'm going to have our attorney speak a little bit about this to you, okay? On the compromises that we are trying to work on at the moment.
Thank you, Council President. So essentially, as the council has been informed about throughout this process, the affordable housing process is extremely difficult. And the township, even though we were trying to get that number down in litigation, unfortunately, the township has to build over 500 units of affordable housing, which equates to about 2,500 units around town. What's effectively happened is that the township now has to pretty much try and negotiate with every developer to try and make sure that affordable housing is built, and also try and lower that density as much as possible, because 2,500 units would be nearly impossible, and would be detrimental to the town traffic-wise, et cetera. As part of the negotiations and settlement, the settlement with the court, this property was included in that settlement, and it nearly fell through without this property being included. If the settlement falls through, and or if we don't pass this ordinance and continue abiding by the settlement that the court has approved and essentially guided us into, I would say it's more of a court pushed settlement than us actually agreeing voluntarily to. But to the extent that if we don't do that, we'll be in breach of the settlement. We will lose our immunity to builders' remedies. What that effectively means is that builders around town and developers around town will be able to sue us for their zoning and on their land, and essentially sue us to build higher density if they want. We essentially, the minimum control we have now would be basically vacated. We'd be in tons of lawsuits fighting and defending to keep density down.
Why don't we explain how this is going to affect their
So
project, please?
for this property specifically, even though the ordinance says 83 units, and that's to comply with the settlement, we have worked hard working with the developer to lower that number. So far right now, we've agreed with them at 50 units. Okay. So that's where we're at. So even though the ordinance says 83, that's the max in the zoning, and that's not what's being built there. So this is, again, first reading, so I'd request the council to pass it, because if we don't pass it, I think our deadline, and I will confirm, but the deadline from what I was told is July 31st, so we kind of have a very short timeline to pass first and second reading, which is why it needs to be on tonight. So I'd request the council to pass it on first reading. Me and the mayor, I understand, are going to be meeting with the residents to talk about this issue in further detail. And I think our planner is coming also, and we're definitely going to take the resident input. But unfortunately, this needs to happen.
Can you please explain how we have more rights as to what it's going to look like and aesthetics and that type of thing if we go through it with this way?
Yeah, so because we've been able to negotiate with the developer, we've had a lot of say and input, and so we're going to have a significant amount of leverage in terms of how it looks, the architectural design, the parking flow, traffic, etc. Entries and exits, all of that stuff. So we will be able to hopefully mitigate as much as we can. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, this is an empty piece of land that the developer was going to build on. We have no way to stop them from building on it unless it would cost us millions of dollars to try and purchase it for open space, which the township unfortunately doesn't have the budget to purchase these properties. So the only benefit is that we get to control actually how much they're building and try and lower that density as much as possible.
Which is a bit of a compromise from the start.
Fortunately, it's a tough situation. It's not something that the township wants. It's not something that I think, of course, the residents are here that they don't want. But it's something that, we're working hard to find the best solution for everybody, and the attorneys and planners involved. We have our township planner working heavily on it. We have outside planners working on it. The court has a planner. Multiple attorneys working on this to try and really just to mitigate the damage as much as possible on neighborhoods.
Thank you for that explanation.
Council President, before we take a vote, I did want to ask one more question, or maybe two. So, because of the particular agreement that we have with the developer here in terms of input from the township, will they be coming before planning or zoning with their plans? They will be in
Yes,
front of
they
the
will be
planning
in
board?
front of the planning board. So
All the residents will get noticed when the developer comes with their plans in front of planning?
yeah, at least any property owner within 200 feet will be noticed, but I'm sure we can put it out there so that the neighborhood is aware, and they come out to the planning board and voice their concerns when the application is going through that process.
And one other question, since the ordinance also includes this to be age restricted, will the township be able to have any influence on that? Like if I wanted to support that?
I will go back to the attorneys and planners and see what those discussions are. I will say
I could imagine.
I think it has to do whatever the court planner.
Yeah, it's the problem is we've been, I don't want to say too much in the public, but it's been a tough road in terms of also.
All right.
Okay,
You
so this-
can't say it, but I will.
This has to
This bill stinks.
okay.
No, it does. It's
Mayor,
absolutely terrible
Right.
what the state did to all these municipalities around the town.
I understand.
Now, I know there's a lot of high-density advocates out there, but they're at it again down in the state legislature, wanting to throw local zoning out the door with all the nonsense that's going on.
But also, too, was whoever was down there in Trenton, because correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor, is that the town was also, well, maybe most towns were put in a position when by the time we did get what the formula was, it gave us a very short window to come up with the plan. Is that correct? Not the normal amount of time that they should have, number one. And number two, is it still accurate? I know we're fighting it, but is it still accurate that the folks there in Trenton gave Piscataway Township its calculation that included lands that you could not build on, including this space? So that calculation as it stands today, and I understand we're fighting the good fight on that, but we're not going to have an answer before we lose out on having as much control as we possibly could have as a municipality, where we would have to approve this tonight to not miss that window. But we're still, as a township, trying to argue that calculation because, in fact, it included lands that we can't build on, including this space right here. Is that correct?
Yes, so that appeal is still pending. However, if there might be an argument by the court that if and when the settlement finally goes through, that appeal, they may deem it moot.
Understood, but they still didn't do their due diligence.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying every avenue. We're not waiving any arguments. We are fighting tooth and nail. And to your point about the timeline was crazy. I mean, we had attorneys and planners working New Year's Eve all the way through pretty much midnight on Christmas and Christmas Day, Christmas Eve. We were all working because the timeline was just so expedited. It was, and to the extent that I think the state couldn't keep up. Like you said, they had put in properties around the town as part of our calculation and formula, properties that were, I mean, the municipal, the DPW yard, the municipal, anywhere there was grass on a satellite, they counted it. And so it has been a fight. And I think we're close to the best thing we could probably have. But it's not, it's something that's been foisted on us and forced on us.
Right. And not that this is going to change the residents' opinion, because I can certainly understand their angst about all of this, because I certainly would feel the same way, but just so that they understand why you worked through the holidays and why you did that was because exactly what we said. If we don't meet our obligation by the cutoff time, we absolutely, as a town, lose all of our ability to say anything about any large development here. And to the mayor's point, there are, advocacy groups for affordable housing. We all know that this whole area is short of housing. But, we just recently had an election when we're out talking to residents, and they're like, well, I moved here because I want to be in suburbia. I don't want to be in a city, and I want to keep the aesthetic of suburbia. So, again, I'm not saying this to change your mind, but just so that you have an understanding of sort of the position that the township was put in. And I'm on the planning board, and quite frankly, was part of the planning board that sent this to council because, well, first of all, we want to make sure that people can afford homes and that they can build generational wealth, right? It's super important. A lot of people don't have that. And the other thing, too, is to also maintain what we can to keep our township with a certain aesthetic, with whatever controls that we are legally allowed to have. So I want to be fully transparent about that with you folks here, too. So
Councilwoman, is this going to go to the planning board on July 8th or July 22nd?
it goes after our second reading, is that correct?
So
Oh,
this-
after first?
this ordinance will be to the planning board for review after first reading, so on your July.
But it does not
But the
go
apple-
into effect until after.
Until
second
after
reading.
second reading. That's
So
just
the
their
planning board
consent and
essentially
review.
looks at it to make sure it's going to comply, and then it's going to come back to us for second reading.
Yes, and it only goes into effect after second reading.
Right.
2 meetings in July. It's on the 8th or the 22nd. So when is it going to be on the
It would
No.
be on,
On the 8th then,
on the 8th?
yeah.
That meeting's going to happen before the resident.
so this is just on this
Mayor.
ordinance. This is just the zoning for the property. It's not to do with the actual development.
Right.
The actual development application would be a separate application to the planning board in the future, and that application hasn't been submitted. So this, in terms of this property, for instance, to give you an example of what could happen, like we said, we would lose control over zoning and density around town because these builders would be able to sue us essentially on the limitations and restrictions on their property, to the extent that this property, this builder has actually been really good. I want to commend them for like working with us, try and get the density down. But they could sell on to someone else if this all falls through. And to the extent that that other person could then sue us and put 100 units, 150 units on the property, because our zoning restrictions then could be challenged if we don't move forward. It's a lose-lose situation, unfortunately. I can't tell the council that there's a solution to this. I can tell the council that we have to do this because the detriment to the town, both financially and in terms of development controls, is just substantial. I mean, it's just unfathomable what could happen in terms of the township's control over how the town gets developed.
Okay. I just wanted to have that cleared up. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Council.
I have a question. So in the timeline of this, when will the traffic study be conducted?
So all of that would be part of the planning board application by the developer. So then they would have to bring their experts, they would have to do their traffic studies, et cetera. So that would be down the road. Again, this is just the zoning ordinance, basically providing the outer limits of what can be built there. And this is just so that we can show the court that we're moving forward with this, and they're requiring us to do it by a certain deadline, and to show them that what's being agreed to is feasible here and now legally allowed.
Council President, what's ridiculous about this whole situation, this is all supposed to be built over a 10-year period, but the way the courts have set this up is that basically, in essence, everything's going to get built probably within 3 years throughout the state.
Yeah, unfortunately, the timeline that's being forced is, in the past round, we had to basically get commitments or just potential developments around town for over the next 10 years. And we had to get, some commitments, but to the extent that this process and what the court is requiring now is basically concrete development, and the court is checking in with us on literally every few weeks, and in terms of how we're progressing on every site.
Right. That's every town.
Yeah,
That-
it's every town. It's
Every
not us.
town in the state, because
Yeah.
every town has to meet this obligation. And if they don't, then they lose control.
Yes, absolutely. We're not the only one. I would say I think we got one of the higher numbers, unfortunately.
Yes, we did.
And I can go into that in further detail with the council if they want later on, or anybody in the audience. But we fought it, and we're at where we are. So
Okay.
No, you can't call out from the audience. Save that for the public portion of the meeting, okay?
But I just wanted to ask, so the next meeting with the mayor is July 20th,
Right.
which is after the planning board meeting.
Yeah, but the planning board is just getting the ordinance to make
the
sure.
planning board is just a kind of
Dotting the i's and
verification,
crossing the
and like
t's,
I said, it's
essentially.
not anything that really has. It's just exactly.
There's no
dotting the i.
action.
There's no action.
But there's no action, but the
So-
public can go in there and get some more information about the development, right?
The developer is not coming before the planning board.
No. The only thing
No.
that the planning board is going to look at is this document.
It's just the ordinance right now.
Yeah.
There's no plans in front of planning board. I don't even think there's a date on the books, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There.
This is just for us to meet the law,
Yeah.
to
The
abide by the
obligation.
law.
The obligation, correct.
Yeah.
On the 20th, the residents will have an opportunity, again, to see options or to discuss options.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that this ordinance is what we have to do to comply with the law, and the actual development plans are not even concrete yet. So the meeting with the residents will be good to really understand their concerns, so that can be taken into consideration, and it will be before second reading. But to the extent that this ordinance really has to comply with the settlement, and so I don't think there can be modifications to this. There definitely can be taken into consideration their concerns as to the development and the negotiations with the developer. And then, of course, when they submit their application to the planning board, that's when really, the planning board will have a lot more say as to design, architecture, buffers.
Yeah,
for
and I'll
traffic,
say
et
from being
cetera.
on planning board, that is a key part of hearing the residents have their say too when something goes before planning board.
Okay, and so the second reading is on July 21st, according
Yes.
to this?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. In the developers doing the traffic study, they're doing the utility and they're doing the roadway, right? That's on them to do this.
Yeah.
It's on the
And
developer.
that'll be all part of the planning board application.
Okay.
So they would have to bring in their experts, and all their experts usually testify to the planning board for.
And is there a way for us
water
to have a less subjective group do those studies? Like the developer is bringing in their people to do those
We
studies?
have our township professionals review everything and provide their comments and feedback and critique. So
So it's a dialogue between our people and their
absolutely,
group? Okay.
yes.
Oh, right.
No.
It's never a set thing. So every time somebody comes before, and I speak from planning, not zoning, all of our paid professionals who know this inside and out go back to the developer with all their comments about whatever's submitted.
Okay, thank you.
I will tell you that our professionals, I see some of their comments now and then. I'm not the planning board attorney, but they fight hard for township, for things that they feel that should be.
And they don't want to hear me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So please note, again, this is only the first reading. So may I have an offer to accept it?
Offer Cahill.
Can I have a second?
Second, Councilman Aaron.
Ms. Cedar, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cahill?
Yes.
Councilmember Carmichael?
No.
Councilmember Espinosa?
Yes.
Councilmember Leibowitz?
Abstain.
Councilmember Rashid?
Abstain?
Councilmember Aaron?
Yes.
Council President Lombardi?
Yes.
I'm going to just take this opportunity. Our PCTV has been trying to get the Zoom to connect to the room. We're just going to give it one last try. I know on Zoom that you can hear us, but we cannot hear you. PCTV, can you just conduct one more test, please?
This is a mic test, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Mic testing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Thanks for trying, George.
We'll now move to number 10, which are the consent agenda resolution items. We'll get there. We'll get there. Don't worry. For efficiency, items have been consolidated into a consent agenda to be voted on together, and the materials for these items have been distributed to the council in advance of the meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda items?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cahill,
Yes.
Councilmember Carmichael,
Yes.
Councilmember Espinosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Leibowitz,
Yes.
Councilmember Rashid,
Yes.
Councilmember Ern,
Yes.
Council President Lombardi.
Yes, and the consent agenda passes. You will have a public portion, so don't think I'm cutting you out of the public portion of speaking. Number 11 are comments and announcements from officials. Gabrielle Cahill.
I'd like to wish everyone in Piscataway a very happy 4th of July celebration coming up. The township always has a great event down at the school, and then the fireworks, which usually go off somewhere on 9:30. I'm always hoping for earlier. So I hope everyone has a happy and healthy, safe celebration of our 250th.
I'd like to ask everyone to be safe during the holiday, to stay hydrated, watch your pets, don't let your pets be out in the heat too long, and happy 4th of July.
Dennis Espinoza.
Yes, 4th of July is coming, so please be safe out there, drive safely, especially after the event. A lot of neighbors go around and start driving up the parking lots. There's a lot of kids, high schoolers, keep on roaming around, so please be careful. Also, for our neighboring residents, enjoy. I know a lot of them come to Piscataway to watch the fireworks. One thing that you definitely need to know: whoever walks Green Acres, like the mayor, Green Acres is going to be closed on July 3rd, which is this Friday. They normally do that to set up the fireworks and everything, and that's going to be closed until Sunday, I believe, at noon, correct? So just be wary of that. And also, very hot week. I think we hit the 98s, and we're going to hit 100 pretty soon. So just to remind everyone that we have cooling centers around the area. We have one at the Y, which I believe that it's from Tuesday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's Sunday 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Tuesday and Friday from 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. so they can use that facility. We have the Piscataway Township Police Department right here, right across the street, which is open Saturday, open all hours. And then we also have the libraries, which are open from Tuesday to Thursday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. So please, if you have your neighbors that are concerned about cooling systems in their house during this time, because it always happens, some cooling systems just kind of not work. So you have these options as well. So please stay cool. Thank you.
Refer to the website for the hours and locations.
That's correct. To the Piscataway website. Thank you.
Laura Leibowitz.
All good information. Thank you so much. Just to let people know that the Cultural Arts Commission, our first summer concert will be July 9th at Columbus Park at 7 p.m. Bring your own chair, bring a blanket, bring your dancing shoes. The first band is Verdict Reggae Soca Band at 7 p.m. I have just finished 44 years working at a sleepaway camp in the Poconos. I have never been home for the 4th of July. So this is my first 4th, and I'm very excited about it.
Oh, that's funny because you can say hashtag first fourth, right? Piscataway.
Very true.
Sarah Rashid.
I'm also looking forward to the fireworks. I think Piscataway has one of the best fireworks in the neighboring towns, so I'm excited about that. For the Cultural Arts Commission, there is a art contest, the 250 Years of America, celebrating. So they have multiple categories from younger children to adults. The deadline date is August 22nd. So if you like to paint and you have an artistic look, try it. Have your paintings ready before August 22nd.
Councilwoman, is there a theme, or it could be any piece of art?
It is celebrating 250 years of
Okay.
America.
Right. Thank you.
Test, test.
Mayor? Nope. Frank? Aaron?
Everyone have a happy and safe 4th of July.
Mayor?
Very briefly, I just want to let the folks know 2 years ago, we had a situation during 4th of July where over in the Birch Glen development off of Birch Run Drive, where some residents decided to light some aerials up, and the woods behind the townhouses went on fire and ended up burning down 18 of the units there. It was a major fire that happened on 4th of July. So we're just kindly asking the residents, first of all, it's illegal to have the aerials, but more importantly, just come and watch the professionals. We probably have the best fireworks display in all central New Jersey.
We do. And
There's
as a
no
reminder, we're in a drought.
And we're in a
So-
drought. And when there's no reason to do that. I don't want to ever have to be out there on 4th of July at midnight along with all the first responders trying to find shelter for these people that were burned out of their houses because of carelessness and I think recklessness of some folks shooting off the fireworks. They damn well knew that that could have happened, and it did happen. So, secondly, I just want to let the residents know a strong objection to what's going to happen on Thursday over at Rutgers. The university, in conjunction with Choose New Jersey, is having a rock concert at the stadium. They're expecting more than 20,000+ people there. And the significance of that is that we don't want this a slippery slope happening, that they're going to have rock concerts at that stadium all the time to the detriment of the neighborhood. We noted our objections to the university this week and to Choose New Jersey and to everybody in the state that we're expecting that this will be, just because it's our 250th anniversary of our country. And by the way, I get the celebration because we were the home of the first 4th of July celebration. However, I'm concerned about ulterior motives at Rutgers University. They're in a financial crunch. They want to have rock concerts there in the month of June, July, and August to supplement their budget. And I don't think that the residents over in that neighborhood should have to suffer through that. Quite frankly, we've been having some problems over there in the years with some of the practice times over there. So you're probably going to hear more about that coming up. But we're reminding the university officials that there was always a handshake agreement that there would never, ever be concerts over there at that facility, going back to when the expansion in the stadium took place in 1991. So I'm expecting them to keep that agreement, and at some point I may have to ask the council to do a resolution objecting to the university to send on there, so they formally notify that and the governor's office.
Business Administrator Paula Cazzarelli.
Thank you, Council President. Just a quick update with regard to our solar project. The Department of Energy approved reimbursing the township $250,000, so I'm waiting for that funding. I also just would like to bring a little update to the Echo Park. So I'm working with the engineers. We're gonna, and we did discuss combining phase 1 and phase 2. And because we're doing that, I'm gonna go back out to the Brownsfield group as well as the EDA to get additional funding. We're eligible to up to $3 million a year. So we're going to ask for more money for that combination. So we're working with the engineer for a plan. Hopefully it'll be acceptable to the entities I described. And then I just wanted to recognize, we had a medical situation that occurred, and I just really want to recognize the officers that because of them, a life was saved. I would like to recognize Captain Smith, Sergeant Manco, Sergeant Ty, Detective Smith, Officer Piano, Detective Patel, Officer Alcantara, Officer Muhammad. These officers work diligently, quickly. When you have a life-threatening emergency, every second counts. It is because of their quick action as to why, they saved a life. This is huge and remarkable, really, what they did. And I just really want to recognize them tonight and say thank you. And yes, happy 4th of July.
Thank you for that good news on the monies for the ecological park. Our town attorney?
No comments.
And I guess what I have left at this point, I want to thank all of our emergency services personnel that will help to make this 4th of July a good event, a safe event. And again, they all volunteer their time to this community, and I'd like to personally thank them for everything that they will have to do over this weekend. And as we prepare to celebrate the 250th birthday of the United States, let us reflect on what brings us together as a community and as a nation. For 250 years, America has been built by neighbors helping neighbors, by people willing to serve, and by communities working together to create a brighter future. Here in Piscataway, we see those values every day in the families, gatherings at our parks, the volunteers who show up for township events, the first responders who protect our neighborhoods, the small businesses that line our roads, and the residents who make every corner of our town stronger. From Stelton to Newmarket, from River Road to Possum Town, Piscataway is a community where people look out for one another and take pride in calling this town home. As we head into Independence Day holiday, I wish everyone a safe, joyful, and meaningful celebration. May we take a moment to appreciate the freedoms we enjoy, honor those who have protected them, and look forward with hope as we begin America's next 250. Thank you. Happy 250th birthday to United States of America. We'll now move into the agenda session for the July 21st, 2026 meeting. On that agenda, we'll have an ordinance second reading authorizing the expansion of utility agreement with the Piscataway Township Board of Education, 450 Rivercrest Drive, and it will be open to the public, and it will be a resolution adopting ordinance. Any questions or comments from council? On there will be an ordinance second reading, amending and supplementing Chapter 21, zoning to establish and enact affordable housing 7AH zone, open to the public, and it will be a resolution adopting ordinance. Any questions or comments from council? On that agenda?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Madam President, I would like to request if the residents could move their meeting up earlier than July 20th to have that discussion with the mayor.
Absolutely.
It might be a good idea.
On that agenda will be a resolution authorizing Chapter 159, 2026, Alcohol Education, Rehabilitation, and Enforcement Fund, DWIs. Questions or comments from council? And on that will also be a resolution authorizing the refund of an overpayment of taxes due to duplicate payment. So at this time, we'll now be number 13, and we will open to the public. Anyone in the audience that would like to come up at this time, please state your name and address and know that you have 3 minutes in which to speak.
Yes, hello. Excuse my voice. It's have a little cold. Andrew Morris, 410 Highland Avenue, here in Piscataway. Hi, everyone. Hi, Council. First of all,
Evening.
good evening. I'd like to thank Ms. Carmichael, Sharon Carmichael. Thank you very much for working for the citizens of your ward and speaking up so forthrightly to everyone in regard to Ward 3. We really, really appreciate you. I want to say thank you to the mayor and to Dana, who helped us out greatly and in agreeing to meet with all of us to discuss, I guess, in smaller group, to discuss possible options and ways and to hear our concerns in more than 3 minutes. So thank you all. We greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Attorney, also. So here we go. So don't get this wrong. This is not an issue about affordable housing. That's not why we are here. This issue is about the housing project being too large for this location. It is close to the school, only a half a block away, 400 feet. So this housing is composed of 50 units now. That's still 1 car, 2 cars per person. That's 100 extra cars on the street every day, on a street that is a 2-lane, 1 lane this way, 1 lane that way. No lights, no nothing, no nothing. It's a residentially zoned neighborhood. Zoning has nothing to do with it. Rezoning is just renaming. But if you have 100 additional cars on that street every day, all times a day, the endangerment and the risk to children becomes outrageous. So we are asking that the board here voice their concern regarding the safety of children and family because of the impact of traffic and congestion on the normal scheduled flow of school and children and family as they go to and from all through the day with 100 extra cars sitting on that corner. So we're asking why that corner, why must that place get 100 extra cars there when other areas are not getting as many? They're getting maybe 20 extra cars or 12 extra cars, but no one's scheduled right here, to my knowledge, to get 100 extra cars there every day in perpetuity. I know my time is short, so I'm talking fast. So in closing, children are our most precious commodity, but this housing complex of 50 apartments and over 100 cars is the wrong location for this project. It endangers school children, family, and community services. Elderly, senior citizens like myself, anyone who gets sick in that area with 100 cars, it makes a traffic jam any time of day. So anytime an emergency vehicle has to get through, they are backed up or delayed. And I think the mayor just referred to people getting sick and injured. And now there's 100 cars in one location there. So I would ask you all to please reconsider building such a large unit in that one small area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council Member and Mr. Mayor. My name is Syed Ahmed from 399 Highland Avenue, and I'm a concerned resident of the Heights. Look around this room tonight. We are not just a list of people on a petition. We are mothers, fathers, grandparents, and hardworking taxpayers. We are a community of families who build our lives in a quiet, single-family R10 residential zone. But tonight, our safety, our children's safety, our entire neighborhood are under immediate threat from this high-density Macedonia property proposal. Our streets are narrow. Within just a few hundred feet of this proposed high-density building, we have 4 churches, 2 schools. Think about it. That's 4 churches and 2 schools. This infrastructure simply cannot handle the severe traffic spike this complex will bring. We are talking about dangerous bottlenecks during morning school bus drop-offs, during school events, and during solemn hours of worship. Are we really willing to risk a child being stuck by a car or an emergency vehicle being trapped in a bottleneck just to clear the path of a developer? Our children's lives are absolute, non-negotiable. Furthermore, utility grids will strain. Shoving a massive multi-unit complex in a single-family zone is an absolute failure of public safety. If you grant this extreme zoning variance, you are tearing down Piscataway. We call it home. You will set a dangerous precedent that tells every developer, come in, combine a few lots, and dismantle any single-family neighborhood the way you want. Every single one of us in this room must strictly adhere to the township's law and zoning code every single day. Why are the rules bent for outsider developers while the residents are left to suffer the consequences? We demand strict municipal accountability, total transparency, and a full halt to these variances. Protect our neighborhood, protect our children, do the right thing. Many of you who live in Piscataway, would you be accepting this if that happens in your street? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, good evening, council members. My name is Pranav Patel and I reside at 705 Plainfield Avenue. I'm here tonight to respectfully request...
Hold the mic down.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, so I'm here tonight to respectfully request council oversight regarding a matter of municipal compliance and public safety on our property that has been pending for nearly more than 10 months. My family have been living under this TCO because several required municipal infrastructure items remains incomplete. While we are in communication, the builder simply keeps this item pending and isn't taking action to complete items, which has made this past 10 months very stressful to my family. I'm reaching out to the administration and kindly followed up yesterday also to seek advice, but as we didn't heard back from them, I'm coming to this council meeting to politely request your help as a homeowner. I want to clarify to Township that I'm not asking the town to manage a public contract. I'm asking the town to enforce its own municipal building codes and open TCO related items. The builder is currently pointing to delay regarding utility fiber optic conduct on the site that is stalled. However, there are several critical outstanding municipal checklist items that can be completed independently without any issue and can be finished right away. So as a taxpayer and a resident, I'm incredibly grateful for the communication I had with Mr. Hoff and Herrera. We are truly looking forward for this township as an ally to help us to get this over and finishing line. I'm kindly asking council tonight to help encourage the builder to complete this final outstanding TCO items so that this resolves and my family can finally secure a permanent CO. Thank you for your time, and yeah, this is my first council meeting, so I have just been in Piscataway less than a year, but it feels good, but I hope we can tackle this in this council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for President, I just would like to bring our attorney up to speed with respect to this. This resident purchased a home. Developer developed a 4-lot subdivision. He's having difficulties with the developer. The township has done a tremendous, and I think you'll agree, right? Mr. Herrera and Mr. Hoff have done a Herculean effort to try and help this resident. Unfortunately, as I had described, that we can only work within the purview of what the government entity can do. Mr. Hoff actually coordinated with the Department of Community Affairs, an arbitrator, to come in and try to work this out with your developer and you. So, Raj, this is a matter that is really out of the township's hands. It was a problem that he's having, that this resident, it is unfortunate, he's having difficulty with the developer. Our engineer has tried to intervene, our construction official has tried to intervene to assist, but at this point, an arbitrator's been assigned to the matter, and we can only do what is under our purview. And
So I would like to add that I'm just talking about the TCO related item which falls into Piscataway Township. So I hope this is not my personal matter. This is the township related TCO outstanding item which I am referring here.
We can, let's talk, and we'll talk to Joe and Joe Hoff and Joe Herrera offline and see if there are any outstanding township items that we can get resolved.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep, thank you so much.
Doretta Gray, 318 Rivercrest Drive.
Welcome.
So my understanding is that because we told the court that we had a single parcel of land on which we could have 100% affordable housing, enough to meet our obligation, that we are locked into it being that particular piece of property, and that amount, it has to be, you have to meet the obligation with that particular piece, is that correct?
Why don't
No.
you ask all of your questions, and then, so this way you don't exceed it, and then we'll answer
Okay, so
those
that
questions.
was one, and then
Okay.
the other one is about the developers. You mentioned that, and you said the developers, so I assume that means there are different ones in town, different, that if we don't build this on this particular piece of property, making it 100% affordable housing, that somehow these developers could sue us? So I'm just, can you connect the dots? How does that work?
Yeah, for sure. Let him give you explanation.
So, first of all, we're only getting it down to 50 units by putting housing elsewhere. And that's how it's not, we're not just negotiating it down. Two, the developer was already going to build on this property. What happened is the state doesn't, we don't say, okay, this one piece of property needs to be built on, that's how we're going to meet our guideline. The state requires us to say and literally probably every piece of open space in New Jersey is now being built on.
They did it. The state did it.
The state
and told us where we
The
could
state
build.
told us where we would have to build, essentially.
They tell us that
Yes.
that particular piece has
They
to be
they
a
listed
certain amount
they
on
listed so they if we went by what the state required us to do, I think I had talked to the mayor, and I think we were having to build a density of about 50 units per acre on every remaining piece of open space we have in the township. That's what the state is requiring us to do. And so what we're effectively doing is having to go to every developer that's going to build on every lot that we knew that someone was going to build on something, and basically negotiate with them to build in affordable housing.
Oh, I thought developers were obligated to do
20%.
20%.
Only 20%.
Yeah.
And even the ones that had already were already planned in the third round or had less percentages. It's only the new round that is 20%. So to the extent that yes, this was going to get built on. If we didn't make this affordable housing, it still would have been 50, 100, it still probably would have been over 100 units.
Why
would that because at the end of the day, we still would have had to, they still would have had to build out a certain number of affordable around town. It would have been somewhere else, and we would have had high rises at one point. There was discussions
But
of.
would it be more spread out around town?
So,
There's no spread. There's literally, I will tell you that there is no spread around town. 50 units per acre is what we would have to build if we weren't building affordable housing. So that's literally what the requirement would be, which is crazy.
Raj, you might want to explain that
Yeah.
in the developer, like in order to meet this particular requirement, and
Yeah.
once again, because in our formula, and probably other towns suffered this as well, the state calculated this land as developable land over DPW yard. I don't mean this building, but anywhere that was green grass. So that affects then how much we have. So they've picked spaces where we cannot build,
Right.
but included it in the calculation. So
Right.
that makes it more, but
So I'll give you an example. So when our planners went back, and they literally had probably less than a week to figure this out. It was a crazy short window. But when they went back and analyzed every plot of land in the township, we found that there was probably only about 60 acres buildable. With the state requirement of over 500 units of affordable housing, at 20%, we were going to have to build 2,500 units on those 60 acres. It would be high rises everywhere.
So it seems like it's coming down to this little piece of land, less than an acre, in the middle of our well-established neighborhood is the savior for this entire.
I don't think it's less than an acre, though, right?
It is, isn't it?
It's-
0.7.
So
So that, you know, that's,
yeah, I mean every section of town is
are there other neighborhoods that are
Yeah.
going to get
Oh, absolutely.
apartment
every,
buildings?
yeah,
Absolutely.
every,
Unfortunately-
South
next
Second
to the
Street, I think,
single-family
Oh, yeah.
homes?
South Second Street. is the apartment.
Another 400 units next to Eisenhower School.
yeah, even
Yeah.
I mean literally every empty building or open lot is having to be built on.
Every area of the town's going to get nailed.
Why,
There's-
why
there's-
is it that other developers who have their own projects can sue the township?
They can't right now. Well, so
Although we have a developer.
we have a
who
developer
did sue
suing us, and part of this affordable housing litigation,
developer
a
across
developer
the
that we
street is-
didn't include
Yeah.
in it, to basically sued us and said we want to build more density, and effectively what's happening is that if we don't actually come to an agreement, and we were hamstrung, we didn't have any other place to put stuff. We ran out of places to put stuff, and so every piece of open land is essentially being developed. And so, and
I'm missing a connection
Okay.
here.
What?
So another developer wants to make a bigger high-rise.
Do you know,
If we make this one at the Macedonia, they won't be able to make a bigger high-rise?
oh, and they're still building bigger high-rise, you'll see. So,
There-
I mean, it's
right now our zoning doesn't allow for high rises.
No.
We have one
we would,
exception. If I could, just Counselor, 1 second. So I think, Ms. Gray, you had some comments about the town center when it was initially, the developer was
Yes,
coming out.
because it's right up against the neighborhood, and we wanted a buffer.
Correct. That developer sued the town, and his idea was to build one high-rise near where you live, all affordable housing. And that was going to be the solution. We found that unacceptable, to build towers in this town. We've spoken to people time and time again, is that they don't want high-rise apartments in this town.
But how can he sue the township?
Because
you're
he's a
saying,
developer offering a judge an affordable housing plan.
they came to the court
They
and
can
said,
do it.
they said we can build those 2,500 units on our property, and effectively.
And the plan that you
and-
saw would have
and
not looked anything like you saw it.
Nothing you
You wouldn't
saw
have had
would
a
exist.
town
It would just
center, you would
be-
have no necessarily having single-family homes where there were. He would have total control of that, and right up against where you live, he could have built, if he
And-
decided, anything he wanted
So the
to.
judge only listens to the developer?
No, we
Does-
brought a plan. We brought a counter
We
plan.
we had counter plans. The court planner had their say, and the developer brought their plans, and we fought hard. As I've said to the council, this is a lose-lose situation. The township is stuck between a rock and a hard place. There is no open space in this town that, if it's not already owned by the township, is not going to be built on. It's it is a tough situation.
We are not the only town that is faced up against this problem at the same time. It's the whole state of New Jersey.
There's going to be a lot of traffic right near those schools. You're going to have to come up with some way to mitigate all those cars.
Is there?
As it is now, when school is in, there's a lot.
We have clearly exceeded our time.
Right,
limit
and I
on-
just want to add one thing.
That's okay.
Come to the meeting with the mayor if you can, and let's chat. That's why we want to have this meeting, is so we can hear all of you
Right.
and all your concerns
When is
with
this
more
meeting
time.
going to be? When and
It's currently scheduled for July 20th. We can, if the residents, yeah. So
It should be earlier.
if you want to move it earlier, we'll make it happen earlier. So we'll be flexible with you guys, but that will be a conversation without time constraints, so we can really have a good, deep conversation.
Thank you.
And Counselor and Council President, if I may, our ordinances are published, and Ms. Gray, just so you know, it says in it, part of it reads, where on August 21st, M&M, which is the developer of that town center that would back up against where you live, filed a challenge to our township's 4th round housing element and fair share plan. And whereas on September 26th, November 13th, December 4th, and December 17th, whereas on September 2nd of 2025, this is, Fair Share Housing filed a challenge to our 4th round housing. Fair Share Housing does not care if we have tall buildings or not. They're doing the right thing, trying to find housing for people, which we are at a shortage of, there's no doubt. Most people I talk to, in the months of May, they don't argue, just as this gentleman said, and this isn't an argument about affordable housing, which we know is need, but keeping an aesthetic to the town. And there are folks like the council president here who very home was also subject right behind her house to a higher density.
Correct. I had woods behind my house at one time, and now I have a whole townhouse development.
Right, and where your house is here and you look up at like this.
And
So-
at the same time, down the street from me, I'm going to have hundreds and hundreds of apartments, and I'm going to be inundated with traffic also.
Right. So it's not, just so you're aware, it's not just you. Other folks here too have also experienced it. Again, I'm not trying to take away
Correct.
from what you're trying to do.
This is not about aesthetics, this is about safety for children.
Okay, we can't do from the audience, please. Thank you.
Can I have 30 seconds? I'm sorry.
Hang on. Please state your name and address.
Sorry, Esther Niels, 240 Highland Avenue, Piscataway. Quick question, who are these developers? I don't mean to be ignorant, but when they petition the court for a particular ordinance or whatever, the council, aren't we notified when they go to court to get this? Where are these the state developers, or those are just independent business people that are petitioning the court to take, they buy the property up first? Excuse my ignorance on this, but I'm trying to get a handle on why they have so much authority, and we're referring to the developers, but I'm not identifying them as to where they have so much clout.
So the state is the one that set the requirements and the number.
Okay.
To the extent that fair share housing was involved in that, and the bill and the developers groups were part of it as a whole. What's happening now in this litigation, and it's still part of the same process, and that process is actually provided for in the statute that was passed, is that a private
Passed by the
developer.
state?
What?
Passed by the state?
Yeah, passed by the state. A private developer is taking advantage of our tough situation and basically sued us. Because they don't care about aesthetics, they don't care about density, they just want to make more profits.
It's all about the money.
Essentially.
I know that, okay. See, because what I'm seeing here is that you say a hot rock and a hard place, but apparently we have no recourse once you say tonight, if you pass everything, once it's done, it's done. So why are we meeting and trying to discuss?
Tonight was only the first reading. It has to go
Yeah,
through a
but
second reading.
From what the
So-
legal counsel.
Something has to be
that-
built there.
That.
Something has to be built there, and we'll continue to work
that-
to try and see if we can move more units elsewhere, and we're continuing to do that. We've gotten it down, it was gonna be 83, we've gotten it down to 50. We understand, and we're listening. I'm absolutely going to meet with you guys and listen to everything, and we're gonna continue to fight to see what we can do. But we have to continue with the process to meet our compliance with the court. If we don't, those builders, we won't have a say at all. Right now, we have some say, and if we don't, those builders will be able to basically sue us based on our zoning restrictions and get rid of them, essentially.
Yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying, but I'm just afraid that once you say this is the first, you go for, after this first resolution, then you won't have any say-so on what they want done. It's as if they have total control.
No, not necessarily. There's still the planning board. There's still a potential developers agreement where we can
Okay, so what recourse do you have for the developers if they choose not to acknowledge or to go along with whatever the suggestion?
They have to get
is from the
approvals to
board?
build. They absolutely cannot. They cannot just say, okay, we've got our zoning ordinance, we can go ahead and build whatever we feel like.
Okay, so
They
you're
still
saying
have
the
to
courts
get
will
approvals.
overrule our zoning?
If we don't comply with rezoning and making sure that we get something built there, yes.
Okay.
And that we meet our number around town.
Yeah.
So it's something we have exhausted every town.
Yeah.
This isn't like, okay, we can easily find a place for those 50 units. If we could, we would have done it.
I understand the recourse.
Right.
So
You asked her.
And Esther, they still have to, when they go to build, they still have to come before a planning board.
I understand what you're saying about the planning board and about the zoning, but it appears to me that the developers are able to go straight to the courts and overrule our zoning.
This developer who's working with the town did not. It's
Yeah.
another developer in
He
a
didn't, but
different.
one did.
One did because he wanted to put up high rises, and this town is fighting that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we're coming up with a different plan.
so
Because
what
our
recourse?
plan is going to be accepted by the judge, we believe.
Okay.
Our attorneys talk to them on a regular basis. Here's what the town is coming up with. So that instead of the developer winning, the town.
Okay, so I think we really need some type of recourse in case they play hardball, which they probably will,
And we're-
from a financial standpoint.
And that's why we're working on agreements with them, so we have contractual obligations that they have to comply with.
But let me
So-
be clear on this.
We have exceeded, well
I
exceeded
know, I'm
our
sorry, and I
time.
apologize.
We
It's
have
my first
well
time
exceeded
doing
our
this,
time.
and I really don't have
Yeah.
time for this either, but I'm just a little bit annoyed.
We are too, don't
We are
worry.
too.
Yeah,
It
I'm
is.
sure. So I'm still trying to maintain. I'm saying, what recourses does the council have?
We're going to have to let someone else go at this point, because we're going to have a meeting with everyone so that you can clearly speak with the mayor
And we'll talk
and
to
the
you.
attorney.
We'll talk
for
to you about
answers.
that further. I'll bring some of my other one of my other attorneys that has also is directly dealing with the litigation in the court. But there,
Considering
unfortunately,
that once you give them the okay on this part,
yeah, this
recourses
is
will be
this-
very limited.
Oh no, absolutely. This is not. This doesn't give them carte blanche to do whatever they want. This absolutely does not.
So how are they?
So
Are they going to be able to overrule, if they went directly to the courts before, are they going to be able to overrule?
this is a
No, no,
different.
All right,
No.
we have to
Yeah.
end it here. But we will get.
We can chat after the
Right.
meeting, and we can chat when we have the full meeting.
Thank you.
And discuss it.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. Stephanie Mackey, 91 Castle Point. So I'm not in the area of which they're speaking of, but my concern is the root of the problem. It sounds like to me the state is making this great decision for this little bitty state that's overpopulated. And because it's affecting all of the townships, My question is, have all the townships gotten together to say to the state that this is ridiculous? And how are you making a decision over our properties just by looking at a satellite and not knowing what's going on in all of our communities?
That's a great observation.
And the mayor can talk to a bit about it before. We tried, beyond the court litigation, we tried many avenues, including going to the state directly. Also, the League of Municipalities got involved. There was, which is basically a conglomeration of the municipalities to represent them. Unfortunately, there was a push by the state to pass this legislation, and once they passed it, they enforced it. So.
So the Supreme Court.
Of New Jersey.
So we weren't given an opportunity to fight for it, is what you're saying?
We fought, we lost.
Yeah.
All of the townships together fought?
Yes, as
Oh, yeah.
what Raj was just telling, it's called the
And
League
I will
of
say that there's,
Municipalities.
unfortunately, I think, and this is my personal opinion, is that, there are some towns that got away somehow, and I don't know how, but unfortunately, we weren't one of them that escaped from the obligations. So,
For instance, Woodbridge didn't have a requirement, Perth Amboy, New Brunswick, Carteret, and I think
Yeah.
one other town again. So all the other towns that are left in the county had to pick up the slack for those 5 towns.
yeah.
It sounds like 500 is excessive for one.
Oh, it is. It is, and we argued that to the court. And we had, and I will tell you, even with this settlement, the state planner is still fighting us because they feel that it's not acceptable.
Okay, so
Thank
they
you,
don't
ma'am.
want suburban neighborhoods to exist anymore.
Exactly what the housing advocates want to see happen to Piscataway Township. They don't want it.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Tia, and I live at 412 Rivercrest Drive. Now, the reason I'm speaking now is because I am smack dab in the middle of this location that we're talking about tonight, as well as the one that's being built where the town pool used to be. So I'm right in the middle of both, and I'm not happy about that, because I live on Rivercrest Drive, where in the mornings for school, when school is open, a lot of traffic. I could barely get out of my driveway. So that's a problem for me. Secondly, I'd like to know if the town has ever appealed the decisions by this court. How often can you appeal it?
Once we have we can only appeal it once, and we have appeal pending.
Okay.
So, but at the end of the day, our legal remedies are little, and the court has not taken action on our appeal for, it's been a year now.
And there's no
So-
way you could file a complaint about that, because something's
No.
over them.
I will tell you, appellate is so backed up. We have an appeal pending on another matter.
We're going to be lucky if this gets heard in about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, by the time the appeal probably actually gets heard, we'll have already had to build out. We have other pending litigation that's in the appellate division, and it's been over 2 years nearly, and we still haven't heard anything. They haven't scheduled oral argument. Everybody submitted their briefs. It's just sitting there, and unfortunately.
Okay.
Council President, I do. I have a recommendation to the resident. If there's a complaint about the traffic going to Kanakamak, I'm
I'm
assuming
smack dab between Kanakamak and.
you have a city member of the Board of Education out in the public. Talk to him afterwards. A lot of the problems is they need to get control of the traffic flow on
There's
the
going to be
school.
even more traffic once that.
Yeah.
Uh,
One of the biggest problems we have in safety-wise right now is when the parents are dropping off and picking the kids up. There's
And the
no
bus.
control of it there.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'm sorry.
A
And the
lot of
school
complaints
bus.
around town about it.
And the school bus. I, I have another point to make. Sorry. I heard, I think the attorney and maybe you, Madam President, speak about other locations that are supposed to be developed also.
Absolutely.
What about the farm I've been in town since 2004. That farm has been vacant almost as long as I've been here.
You're talking about the ecological park?
We're making that a park.
So that's also,
We bought that years ago
Yeah.
with open space
so
funding.
it's open space, so
Okay.
now it's actually restricted from development because of how it was purchased. But also, it's highly contaminated. And so
Okay.
if we would ever try,
Okay, that's scratched.
if residential was tried to build on it, it would
Yep.
cost millions upon millions.
Now, what
So-
about all the vacant business buildings or corporation buildings that are vacant along here? Why can't they be built into apartment complexes?
Again, the thing is, we unfortunately can't be the
That's
builder
wasted space.
because we don't have the budget or finances to be the builder,
Well,
right?
those same developers
And
can do that.
they can, but they won't.
Let me stop
Yeah.
the attorney. The answer is no to that. And the reason why is because the courts have been very crystal clear. This, even though they're looking at vacant land, it also has to be livable land, not in industrial areas. And that's
Yeah.
the crystal clear.
Yeah, they wanted to make sure that we're not sticking people in around a factory or et cetera. To the extent that also we don't get to decide what's built where in terms of these are private builders that are looking for their profit margins. And so we don't get to tell them, hey, listen, you should knock down your profitable commercial building to build residential because they're going to lose money. So this again, with the township is stuck between a rock and a hard place. We have to rely on private entities that are for-profit entities to build out what we're required to meet on a requirement by the state. So we don't have the power to even build it, but we're still having to meet it. Or these builders can then have, basically, we don't get immunity from their litigation to basically attack our already existing zoning restrictions.
We have exceeded our time on this one.
We can definitely talk more, so.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abhay Patki, 58 Lincoln Avenue, Piscataway. I'm a resident of Piscataway for last 26 years and very happy with the residential neighborhood that we are in. I think with this possibility of having these 50 units now, it's going to destroy the suburban atmosphere of the Piscataway Township. And all the points that have been talked so far, why can't we talk these points to the court or to the judge or whosoever, and I'm sure they will understand. Why can't they understand? These are all the points that everybody is talking about. These are all logical points. Why can't they understand these points? How
Any
can
other-
we lose this situation? In the
Do you have any other questions?
Yes.
Okay.
So the next question is how we can influence these developers or whosoever is trying to put this building in this small property by allowing all these variances to occur, and we'll be setting a precedent to allow variances to happen all the time. My second question is, or third question is, if I just want to build a small deck in my backyard, I need to get permission, and if it is 1 foot or 2 foot away, I will get knocked down. And how can we allow all these major variances to build 50 units in this 0.7 acre lot where there could be 200 cars or 150 cars? These are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So your first question, did we present all the concerns that you have to the court? We absolutely did. Our planners fought hard for the effects and implications that all of this development and these locations would have on our residents. It was part of the reason why we fought so hard to get that number down. And the state plan, basically, I think to get down to, I think our number was around 200. And at the end of the day, the court just came back to us and just ignored us. It was, you know, I think when we had that call, Mayor, it was devastating. It was just, you know, the business administrator was involved in all of this, and she, you know, there was a lot of yelling. It was, yeah. It wasn't a nice, soft process. There was a lot of back and forth. We did fight. I can promise you that we did fight. But it's at the end of the day, we were told this is what you have to do, and the court ordered us to do it.
Okay. One more last question. Do we get any transparency in all these processes and what's happened? Because as a resident, we don't know anything about this.
During the litigation, for various reasons, we don't advertise exactly what's going on. But I think you might have seen throughout the past 6 months to a year, the mayor's been very livid about housing advocates. That's the reason why, because he's been very frustrated with the whole process and what we've been forced into.
Yeah, we're basically being forced, correct. And, you know, the problem lies is, and the hard part to understand is that when a developer owns a piece of land, they have to be able to do something with their land. And what they want to do with it is make money. You know, we want to compromise and, you know, do what's right for our community, of course.
No,
but the amount of housing we're being forced to do is being forced upon us. And I don't think that's the part that everybody quite understands.
No, but as a zoning board and as a planning board and then a building board, can the board say that, okay, the zoning allowances is for only 10 units, not 50 units, for example?
But we
Then
had
that's
to,
the Piscataway residence
right,
law.
but we had to meet an obligation. So in order to meet
It's the
what
fourth
Trenton
round,
is
yeah.
telling us, and this started way back in the late 70s, 80s, right? It's called the Mount Laurel agreement. You can Google that, and it'll talk all about affordable housing here in the state of New Jersey, I'm sure elsewhere. But of late, most recent late, the advocates, the Fair Share Housing, which is a lobbying organization, has organized to put pressure on Trenton to make sure that every town, city, municipality in New Jersey, they're based here in New Jersey, meets a certain threshold. And so a calculation is developed by Trenton and whoever down there makes this calculation. As we said before, the calculation includes pieces of land that we couldn't build on, right? Parts of the Township DPW. So yes, that's in a part of an appeals process, but as the attorney said, we won't meet it. So where does your voice come in is what I think you're asking. So we have to meet that obligation. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we could, as a board and as a council, just change our ordinances so that we could have high rises just as they do in New Brunswick. And then you could develop 2,500 units because the calculation is what, 1 in every 6 affordable. By opting to make this all affordable, we avoid having to create high rises in this town, right? Because if it's 500 and some odd units, it really means that you have to build 2,500 units in order to do that. But whereas if you keep it just as an affordable housing complex, you reduce the amount of homes that you have to build, right? So the baseline is that we're fighting it. I mean, what's the phrase? You're fighting town hall. We're fighting it with Trenton. But if we don't agree as a council to put forward a plan, the developer who already sued us last year, the lawsuit isn't settled, right? It's still ongoing because this could all fall apart tomorrow, right? the developer of the town center that I was talking to Ms. Gray about, I'm not sure she's still here, which includes the property across the street, right, where Telcordia's tall building is, Erickson was last there. That same developer actually showed you all his residents at the YMCA, had three sessions for residents to come in and give your input. And guess what the developer decided 2 years ago? I hope we're not, he went like this to us. We didn't agree.
That
He
meant
showed us
nothing.
this beautiful plan. A transit village for young people, maybe who are first starting out, who want to commute, right? Have a little area there where you could walk, get your coffee, do your dry cleaning, grocery stop in a small footprint grocery store, all here. And for Ms. Gray, it would have been single-family homes butting up against single-family homes, townhomes, and apartments. That's the developer who, along with Fair Share Housing, sued the town for the plan that we put forward. And if, by chance, this judge decides against us, that is what will come into this town. And again, you know, we recently had an election talking to residents who are saying, I moved to Piscataway for its more, you know, these are mostly Jersey people who came from other city places and said, I came here for the suburbia, for the more quiet nature of what this town gives. And if you look around, right, doesn't make a difference the color of your skin, right? People all have pride of ownership in this town. We're a very unique town in this state, and maybe perhaps this entire country, because we are an extreme melting pot, right? And most of us get along. But this is a problem where it doesn't make a difference that we all recognize that people need a place to live, they want to have affordable housing, that we talk about building generational wealth, right, for people who don't usually get that opportunity. The average person that I spoke to complained about what you're all here about tonight. And it is a very difficult situation. I'm pontificating now, and I don't mean to be, but there isn't anyone up on this council, well, maybe some, but most of us would not opt for this. This would not be what we would want to choose. But without this remedy, and I think Ms. Gray was saying this particular law, it is not. It is every space that is developable for residential use is
Going
on
to be
this plan.
part of our obligation.
It is on this plan. Whether or not this developer builds or not is to be seen. There's no plan in front of us. That's where your voices will come into play, coming to planning board when they are before us. We still do have a second reading. You have to get that meeting moved up to a sooner date to have some input. But I can tell you, being on planning board, when the residents show up, it makes it much easier for the planning board to take that into consideration, and also pressure on the developer. And I'm sorry, I spoke way too long.
Thank you.
Thanks for the explanation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sorry. My name is Arshad Jamil, Pisca 5225 Emerson Street. Hey there. I want to tell the same theme I also want to tell. I have lived in 6 countries: India, Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Germany, Netherlands. Finally, I moved here to Piscataway, and that is more than 30 years now, to a place, and I'm still living there. And that says a lot, you see. That other places, I moved. This place, I stuck, you see. We have got this is such a nice town, suburbia, as we said. I can walk, take morning walks, quiet, there's no fear. People are nice to each other, say hello, good mornings, and all that, which I did not find anywhere else, you see. So keep that in mind. And same, in the morning, children can walk to their schools. They run, they walk, they're happy faces. Let's not destroy that, you see. This, and by the way, over here, when I came here also, I learned few things. I learned how to volunteer, which I did not know at other places. So I did my bit also, you see. I was in the school system, in the township also, in some of the commissions. We have got such a nice mayor. He knows most of the people by first name, So whenever he sees me from a distance, he can call me out, you see. And he knows all these streets' names, you see, that's what he said. That's terrible. And you people have done such a nice job, you see. Nice streets, always news developed, you see. No broken places. So please keep those things in mind. Just one thing, one observation, I was just thinking loudly. We are talking about the developer. I thought this land belonged to a religious organization. How could they sell it to a developer? Or is it sold or not sold? Think about it, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let's go.
Before I begin, Council President, were you able to hand this out? Okay, thank you so much. My name is Larry Cohen. I live in Fanwood, and I'm a volunteer with the Humane World for Animals. And I'm here basically to ask you to complete some unfinished business. If any of you were on the council in 2020, you may remember that in March, you were poised to introduce on first reading an ordinance to restrict what pet stores can sell in terms of live animals, dogs, cats, and rabbits. COVID then hit, the world closed down, and this never got done. And I'm here to ask you to revisit it. And based on what I've heard tonight, kind of give you a feel-good opportunity to prevent something ugly from coming into your town that you have an opportunity to keep out. Just to review, this ordinance is very simple. It basically hurts no one. It welcomes pet stores that are here, that want to come here in the future, that provide goods and services. It just basically says you cannot sell dogs and cats and rabbits. The reason being is this well-established and well-known pipeline that these stores get their animals from these mills out in the Midwest where there's incredible torture and inhumanity. And so the theory is, let's shut down the demand for what these mills are producing and hopefully affect the mills. 155 towns in New Jersey have done this. Just today, Delaware became the 10th state to do this statewide. Yeah, it's not a fringe movement. I understand it's not nearly as impactful or important as what's happening to these people here. But from my perspective, it is important. It goes to one of the things that I think public officials are charged with, and that is protecting the welfare of the communities they serve, including preventing cruelty whenever possible. And this certainly does that. So I'd just like to urge you to revisit this, to basically finish what you started.
Thank you.
Yeah, the ordinance is attached to this as well.
We will definitely take a look at it and revisit it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can't believe we didn't pass that, Mayor.
It was COVID.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion this evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We hear you. We are listening to you. And we applaud you for being advocates for your neighborhood. So at this point, I'm going to adjourn this evening's meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, and have a good evening, everyone, and happy 4th of July.